Good evening and welcome to Sky Night. The moon is waxing gibbous and 95% illuminated. It is rising in the afternoon and shining most of the night in Capricornus. Enable captions in your language to see local observing cities and times. Join us for a guided tour of tonight's whole sky. We begin our evening with Venus halfway up the southern sky, then move to Vega almost straight overhead alongside Albireo and Altair high in the southern sky, finishing this first leg with the Crescent Nebula almost straight overhead. As the night deepens, we turn our attention to Mars near the eastern horizon. Toward morning, the sky offers the Andromeda Galaxy almost straight overhead and Saturn halfway up the southern sky, followed by the Triangulum Galaxy high in the southern sky and Jupiter near the eastern horizon, while Polaris shines high in the northern sky and Algol sits almost straight overhead. We will conclude our tour by watching for the moon crossings by satellites. Venus shines as a dazzling silver-white point halfway up the southern sky, outshining every star and dominating the evening view as a naked-eye planet. The earliest last chance to catch the planet before it sets belongs to New York at 8:10 in the evening, London follows in between at 8:40 in the evening, and Los Angeles waits until 7:55 in the evening for its final view before setting. In 1639, a young English astronomer named Jeremiah Horrocks, barely in his early 20s and working from a modest home in Lancashire, defied the great minds of his day to predict that Venus would cross the face of the Sun. While the renowned Johannes Kepler had calculated that the planet would miss the Sun entirely that year, Horrocks trusted his own years of careful observation and built a simple telescope to project the solar image onto paper, waiting anxiously through a cloudy afternoon until the clouds parted just half an hour before sunset. He and his friend William Crabtree became the only two people on Earth to witness that historic moment, capturing a tiny black, sliding across the blazing disk and proving that Kepler's tables needed correction, all before Horrocks himself died of illness at the age of 22. Look almost straight overhead to spot Vega, the brilliant blue-white anchor of the summer triangle and the brightest star in the constellation Lyra. This star reaches its highest point in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 9:15 in the evening, where it remains above the horizon all night. In Chinese mythology dating to the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE, 220 CE, Vega represents Jinu, the weaver girl, separated from her lover Niulong, the cowherd, represented by Altair, by the celestial river, Milky Way. According to the legend, they reunite only once per year when magpies form a bridge, a romantic tragedy celebrated during the Qixi festival on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month, China's Valentine's Day. Find Albireo high in the southern sky at the foot of the Northern Cross in Cygnus. While visible as a single golden yellow point to the naked eye, a small telescope reveals its stunning gold and blue double nature. This star culminates at its greatest altitude in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 10:10 in the evening. The golden star, Albireo A, is not a single sun at all but a close binary, its blended, composite spectrum first revealed during the Henry Draper Spectral Survey in the late 19th century. Altair gleams as a white star high in the southern sky, forming the low corner of the summer triangle in Aquila with two fainter companions flanking it. This star reaches its highest point in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 10:30 in the evening. Altair lies just about 17 light-years from Earth. This makes it one of the closest naked-eye visible stars and one of the best-studied objects of its kind. Our featured deep sky object is the Crescent Nebula in Cygnus, located almost straight overhead. Start at Deneb and move towards Sadr to find the area, though you will need a telescope to see its faint hydrogen red and oxygen blue arc. The nebula is best placed for viewing in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 10:50 in the evening. William Herschel found it in 1792, and it took another 2 centuries before anyone understood that the star at its middle was busy killing itself. Mars rises tonight as an orange-red point near the eastern horizon, visible to the naked eye as it climbs up from the edge of the sky in Gemini. The planet rises in London at 1:10 in the morning, followed by New York at 1:49 in the morning, and finally Los Angeles at 2:05 in the morning. In 1672, an Italian astronomer named Giovanni Domenico Cassini orchestrated a daring experiment to measure the true size of our solar system by sending his colleague Jean Richer to the equator in French Guiana while he stayed in Paris. The two men watched Mars at the same time from thousands of miles apart, using the slight shift in the planet's position against the stars to calculate its distance from Earth for the first time in history. This clever trick, known as parallax, finally gave humanity a real ruler to measure the cosmos, proving that the planets were not just points of light, but worlds with measurable dimensions. We now turn to the crossings of Phobos and Deimos across the disk of Mars. Phobos makes its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 51 minutes. In Los Angeles, this crossing happens between 8:33 in the morning and 9:24 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon. In New York, the crossing occurs between 11:33 in the morning and 12:24 in the afternoon as Mars stands above the horizon. In London, the event takes place between 4:33 in the afternoon and 5:24 in the afternoon with Mars positioned above the horizon. Deimos makes its first crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, lasting 50 minutes. While Mars is above the horizon in Los Angeles, this event unfolds between 12:58 in the afternoon and 1:48 in the afternoon. A different window applies in New York, where the crossing occurs between 3:58 in the afternoon and 4:48 in the afternoon as Mars stands above the horizon. In London, Mars is below the horizon. Phobos executes its second crossing of the apparent disk of Mars, a passage lasting 51 minutes. Mars is below the horizon in Los Angeles, New York, and London. The third crossing of Phobos across the apparent disk of Mars spans 51 minutes. In New York, this event occurs between 2:52 in the morning and 3:43 in the morning while Mars is above the horizon, and in London, the crossing takes place between 7:52 in the morning and 8:43 in the morning as Mars stands above the horizon. In Los Angeles, Mars is below the horizon. The Andromeda Galaxy appears as a pale oval smudge almost straight overhead, located by hopping from the corner of the Great Square of Pegasus along two stars to find this naked-eye spiral galaxy. The galaxy reaches its highest point in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 3:20 in the morning, staying above the horizon all night. The prominent dust lanes in Andromeda's disk are sites of active star formation, where new stars are constantly being born from collapsing clouds of gas and dust. Saturn glows as a steady, unblinking golden point halfway up the southern sky in Pisces, easily spotted with the naked eye by its calm, yellow light. Around 3:35 in the morning, the planet culminates at its greatest altitude in Los Angeles, New York, and London together. General Motors named its experimental car division Saturn after the planet to signal a fresh start, hoping the new brand would orbit the company like a distinct world. Launched in 1985, the Saturn Corporation was billed as a different kind of car company with its own plants and dealers, but despite rolling out millions of vehicles, the brand could not escape the gravity of its parent company and ceased operations in 2010. The Triangulum Galaxy is a broad, ghostly glow high in the southern sky best seen with binoculars. Look in the space between the Andromeda Galaxy and the small triangle of stars in Triangulum. The galaxy reaches its highest point in Los Angeles, New York, and London together around 4:15 in the morning. The Triangulum Galaxy contains NGC 604, one of the largest known clouds of glowing ionized gas, spanning roughly 1,500 light-years and dwarfing the Orion Nebula by around 100 times. In catalogs, it is listed as M33. Jupiter emerges as a bright naked-eye planet near the eastern horizon, rising steadily into the night sky within the constellation Cancer. The planet rises in Los Angeles and New York together around 4:35 in the morning, while London sees it rise separately at 4:07 in the morning. Star Trek's Jupiter station is depicted as a bustling Starfleet outpost circling the gas giant, and it's the very place where Dr. Louis Zimmerman built the emergency medical hologram that saved Voyager's crew. In reality, Jupiter's crushing radiation belts and lack of a solid surface would make a permanent orbiting station like that practically impossible, yet the show's model was inspired by a painting of Captain Picard's quarters. Polaris stands high in the northern sky as the brightest star in Ursa Minor. Find it by following the pointer stars of the Big Dipper, though twilight may brighten the sky slightly at its highest moment. Around 5:10 in the morning, this star culminates at its greatest altitude in Los Angeles, New York, and London together, where it remains above the horizon all night. Polaris is the nearest and brightest classical Cepheid variable star to Earth, oscillating with a precise 4-day pulsation period. As a Cepheid, it provides crucial rungs on the cosmic distance ladder that astronomers use to measure distances to nearby galaxies and determine the universe's expansion rate, Hubble constant. Modern Gaia satellite measurements place it at 447.1.6 light-years away, making it foundational to our understanding of cosmic scales. Algol shines almost straight overhead in Perseus below the W of Cassiopeia. Watch this naked-eye star over several nights to see it fade and brighten as a dark companion passes in front, even if twilight softens the view at its peak. At 5:40 in the morning, this star reaches its highest point in Los Angeles and New York together, while in London it culminates separately at 5:20 in the morning, remaining above the horizon all night there. The name Algol comes from the Arabic phrase Ras Algol, meaning the head of the ghoul or demon, a reference to the severed head of the Gorgon Medusa held aloft by the hero Perseus. Tonight, satellites make 41 crossings of the moon's disk, with 26 of those tracks passing close to towns and settlements, and 6 tracks making up the selected near-town subset. Tiangong Space Station begins its ground path from near Esmeraldas at 6:44 in the evening and ends near Lamza at 2:07 in the morning. For an observer standing on the narrow path, the crossing of the disk takes only about 1 second. The second crossing of the night sees International Space Station begin its ground path from over the open Atlantic at 10:08 in the evening and end near Kempton, Alga, at 3:21 in the morning. The third crossing of the night sees the same satellite crosses again, with International Space Station beginning its ground path from over the open Indian Ocean at 10:53 in the evening and ending near Zhaozhou at 1:36 in the morning. The fourth crossing of the night sees the same satellite crosses again, with International Space Station beginning its ground path from near Owendo at 11:02 in the evening and ending east of Kulsari at 3:15 in the morning. The fifth crossing of the night sees Hubble Space Telescope begin its ground path from near Katwa at 11:15 in the evening and end near Pokhara at 3:12 in the morning. The sixth crossing of the night sees the same satellite crosses again, with Hubble Space Telescope beginning its ground path from near Pekanbaru at 11:33 in the evening and ending over the open Pacific at 1:45 in the morning. Join us again tomorrow for your nightly sky guide, and until then, clear skies and good observing.